Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back. So we have the Phixero 7-port USB 3.2 10 gigabit per second hub. Woohoo! Speed! Alright, so this is a powered hub, which means you best be buying yourself a power supply. Does not come with one. But, there it is. So it does come with the cable, which is Type-C to Type-C, but it also comes with a Type-C to Type-A adapter. And if you want to use NVMe drives with this hub, well, you're going to want to plug into the Type A port on the back of your computer, not the Thunderbolt or Type C. Because for some weird reason, because these are all Type A ports, obviously, the only way to get the NVMe to run properly is to actually use a Type C to Type A adapter with your NVMe, which would generally be a Type C to Type C. You got to run that adapter. Otherwise, it's not going to mount on your desktop. And also, as a side note of weirdness, what I've discovered, two things actually. If you go Type C to your Thunderbolt or Type C port, that's fine, you can do that. But you won't be running the NVMe drive. It'll show on your profile list, but it just won't mount on the desktop. I don't know why. It's kind of a weird thing. However, this way at least it works. I'm plugged into my A port, which is where my other hub was anyhow, that I had down below here. Had all the switches. So to get my NVMe drive, which is a my Passport Western Digital drive, but any NVMe drive is going to do the same bloody thing. You need the adapter. But here's something weird about the adapters, and it's going to be the same with my card reader here. It's a Type-C card reader, but it uses an adapter as well to go to Type-A. Now, believe it or not, I kid you not, I still don't know why, but there is a polarity and data lane shift difference. Okay? So in other words, what we're talking about is your Type-A plugs. They're only going to plug in one way to a Type A port, obviously, right? But the Type C portion has to be plugged in a specific direction. Otherwise, you're not going to get enough milliamps, and you're not going to have any speed. So, for example, my Passport drive, when I plug it in directly to a Type C port or Thunderbolt port, I get just under 800 megabits per second read and write, which I would expect. That's fair. Plugging it into this hub, and the hub is powered, we will get to that shortly. If this cable is not plugged in the right direction into the adapter, you only get 500 milliamps of power. It's going to draw it all too, but you might be lucky to get 32 megabits per second, and you're going to hear some weird noise out of your speakers. And the same exact thing happens with your Type-C card reader here. It has to be plugged in correctly as well in the right direction to the adapter, or the same thing happens. And you have massive instability. The noise is a little annoying. And I don't know why it does this, but it does. Okay? Now, the card reader will work regardless whether this cable is plugged into a Type A port with the adapter, or if it's direct to Type C or Thunderbolt. This thing still works, but it's going to have that voltage drop regardless. It's a polarity thing. It's dropping amperage, it's dropping speed, it's just horrible. So it has to be plugged in the right direction. When this is plugged in correctly with your NVMe, in this case, in this connection, you are going to get Type A speeds. You're not going to get Type C speeds, okay? You get Type A. Now, Type A speed on a drive that is rated for about 1100 megabits per second. Like I said, direct Type C to Type C, we will see around almost 8-ish read and write, okay? That's average and that's normal, okay? We've talked about this before in videos about lack of amperage, etc. We only get 900 milliamps. Now, in the newest versions of USB A on computers, the newest version, it turns out we actually do get 900 milliamps. So I stand to be corrected. Older versions are still 500 though. That I've verified with some other computers in the house. That's all we get. But 900, that's what we can expect out of the newest version of Type A. So anyway, when this cable is plugged in correctly, because like I said, it'll mount either way, but when it's in correctly to the adapter, our speeds are going to be under 400 megabits per second. In fact, I'm going to do a disk speed test for you right now, and I'll tell you what I'm getting with this particular drive. If you have a faster drive, you may see a little bit of extra speed, but this drive is rated for 1100. So the best I can expect on a Type-C direct, like I said, even off my Thunderbolt port on my Mac Mini M1, I get just under 8. But with this conversion process, I am still getting my 900 milliamps. It's going to draw 896. This also gets 900 milliamps, draws 896. Okay, even when there's no card in there, it's drawing that kind of power. So let's select our target drive, which is called 1 terabyte NVMe, which is our Western Digital drive here, and we have a write speed of 341.8, and we have a read speed of 322.1. Now these are expected speeds out of a Type A port, and we have a conversion going on. We're going to get slower speeds anyways. Now, even though we have the same amperage coming out of here as we do out of a Thunderbolt or Type-C port, we do have the amperage. It's still never enough for these drives anyways, because these drives, realistically, an NVMe wants 2+ amps to itself. They will run stable on 900, but they do run very slow in comparison. So, like I said, direct in, you're going to see almost 800 megabits per second average read and write. But on this conversion process here, we are going to see the numbers we just went through, over 300 megabits per second read and write, which is about probably your average speed of a regular old everyday SSD laptop style drive that are rated for 5 and change. They normally plug into a Type A port because that's the way they're made. And yeah, externally they do run around 2 and change. You might see 300 if you're lucky. But internally, of course, they will get much closer to that rated 540 by 500 or whatever they're rated for. And always internal, you will always see the massive speeds of NVMe. Even in a slower rated drive, you will see some exciting speeds. Now, I also have this, this is a B&M key NVMe drive, and it's got a Type A cable coming out of it. And, of course, it's got the funky weird plug on this end. And if we plug this little puppy in to here, we will speed test that. And that came out of the HP laptop that I won from MDG a long way back. That one is called Untitled 2. And we are seeing 243.4 write and 306.9 read. We will see closer to not quite double that, but we will see probably about an extra 100, 150 megabits maybe quicker if that drive was internal. Okay, because it is much faster internal. But it is SATA B&M, which is definitely much slower than a NVMe M.2 either way. But that's what we can expect to see. All right, and I got a lot of stuff plugged in here. I only got one port free. So now, getting into the powered part. Do not run this hub unless you have a power supply to power it. It does not come with one. Okay, this hub costed me, with tax, free shipping from Amazon, about $49 and change with tax. So just under 50 bucks. But they do say on the website listing a 2 amp power supply. They're wrong. There are about 4 different versions at least of this hub where they have different setups. This is the 7 port, and according to the instruction sheet, which is a lot, it shows every hub they have, and it's like, why can't they just stick to what we just bought? But anyways, they specifically say for this exact model, okay, that you need a nothing lower than a 3 amp power supply to power the hub. Now, if you plug a bunch of stuff in here and you didn't have a separate power supply, you chance blowing your bus. Not to mention everything's going to run dog paw slow either way. You do chance blowing the bus on your motherboard. So be aware of that. All right. Don't be foolish about things. Do things right, or don't. But you do need a 3 amp. Now they have a 4-port that has 2 type C and 2 type A, and that's going to require a different power supply, which they get into later on. They say, oh, well, we want 2 amps on the PAU 3 4A, which is 4 type A's, but on the one that has 2C and 2 A's, they want a 3 amp power supply on that. They have another one here with 3 type A's and 2 card readers, which is your both normal sizes here. Okay, that one there, they want a 2 amp power supply for. Okay, so you get the idea. They actually tell you that here. So I'm telling you right now that if you buy this model, okay, that you need a 3 amp power supply. Now, I would probably recommend, because of cable lengths and stuff, there's a power supply on Amazon that looks like a Apple square brick, and it is 3 amps. That's a very good choice of one, because it's one type C port on it, no other ports, so it doesn't have to share voltage or amperage with any other ports. It's designed for, yes, Mac laptops, but it's a perfect power supply. I can't remember what I paid for it. It's on my channel somewhere. Probably look up Mac power supply, and you'll probably come across that one. And it's got a really long type C to type C cable with it. And it works absolutely perfect. And it's the same power supply and cable I was using on my QuizLab hub. And that hub actually could have used a lot more amperage, because 3 amps was just barely cutting it. But this is doing a great job, and we are actually getting 900 milliamps to each port. We have plenty of amperage there. It does the job great. What we do have to watch is this style of drive. These will really chew a lot of amperage out. So right now I've got my card reader in there. I've got my NVMe. I've got my microphone. I've got my phone, because we're using it as a continuity camera right now to record the video. Of course, my printer. My printer only chews up 2 milliamps, but it still gets like full power. But if we add this into the mix, yes, it will mount, but we may have a speed issue. The first trial test might work fine, and we say, oh, we're getting a couple hundred megabits per second, but let it sit for 10 minutes, and next thing you know, it's doing like 32 megabits per second, and yeah, it won't stay on the desktop long if you try to copy with it, because these kind of drives are really major hogs for power. And so we basically have to unplug everything except for probably my microphone or my printer to make sure this is 100% stable. I don't know what it is. It's just, and this is a different case, and it's doing the same thing. And but those drives are pretty much going the way of the dodo bird now anyways. Everybody's using like NVMEs because they are faster, they are stabler. Even though they do chew up a lot of amperage, at least at 900 milliamps, they only draw 896 from the port, which is enough to get them running around that 700 and change to almost 800 megabits per second. Whether it's direct into the computer or via the hub, it's doing about the same kind of speed. Now, it does do a lot better Type C to Type C, obviously being NVMe, but at least the amperage is there for us, and it's going to run it. And the funny thing is yeah, this drive in itself only uses 1 amp, but there's something about this and the cases that with this other stuff plugged in, I got to unplug a few things at least in order to make use of this, and that's not going to work for my purposes. So it's kind of like, well, that just became something that I can use on a different computer once I get all the information off of it. So then I'll be fine. So I'm going to have to actually use a Type A to Type C connection, or just plug it in and get it off it somehow, and because I got to take the data off that and put it onto an NVMe. But anyways, that's kind of the way things work. So remember, these cables, they must be in the adapters the correct polarity, or they don't work right, and that includes your NVMe. Straight in A's seem to be fine, no issues whatsoever. The hub is working great, but you do have to power it, because if you don't power this, all hell's going to break loose. It needs the power supply. So order a power supply when you order the hub, okay? That or, maybe find a different hub that already comes with its own power supply. Like, I got that one that I got from the source, the Vital hub, and it's got 7 ports on it as well, each with its own switch, so at least you just turn on what you need, and that's kind of convenient. But I wanted something faster and better, and this is definitely faster and better than that other one. And of course 3 amps instead of 2 amps, so I have a lot more power available to me, a lot more stability, and which also means more speed too, because going from like version 3 of USB on that hub and jumping up to 3.2, that's a huge increase in performance too. And yeah, I need the performance edge, so I'm not sure what I'm going to use that other hub for now. And now my lights are no longer in the hub. They're actually plugged into their own separate power supply. They were in that other hub, and I was still fine using it, but I still had to watch what I had turned on at the time in order to make sure everything worked right. But at least then my NVMe was actually direct to the Type-C. But now that Type-C or / Thunderbolt port is now free for my next Sabrent case that's coming in that I need to transfer information across with too. Oh, the world of backing up stuff and running stuff. I gotta tell you, it's crazy, guys. But here's my score. My initial impressions are not a review. I'm not going to give you a star rating right now. I want to torture this poor thing for about a week or so, and then I'll give you an actual review. But on my first impressions, it's a very good hub, but I think for $50, they could have thrown in a friggin' power supply with it that's 3 amps. Because, I mean, I bought my Vital one on sale for $20. I don't remember what the regular price was. But it came with a 2 amp power supply. So I see no reason why they couldn't have done that with this. So that's a little bit of a downside. You're going to have to put out extra money for an actual 3 amp power supply. Like I said, do not go under 3 or you're going to have problems. You need that 3 amps. And this is the one that uses 3 amps. So ignore the website on Amazon on the read-up on this one, because it's actually 3 amps that you need. It functions great. I like the fact there's no switches. I can just plug in all the stuff I absolutely need to use and just leave it there all the time, right? And it also cleans up a little bit, being up here now too. To stick this onto the glass, I use it's like a sticky tape stuff. It's this red stuff. It's actually clear once you pull the red thing off. I had to double layer that because the rubber feet on the bottom were a little on the tall side. So I had to put 2 layers of this. So peel it off, pull off the red, put the next layer down, pull off the red, then stick it down. That's how it works. And now it's solid as a rock. It's not moving. I like that. It's there firm. I moved this up here too. More accessible because the cable's pretty short, so I had to reach this. I wanted to put this here down on an angle up here, down below, but this is, it's more rounded at the back. It's not flat, so I couldn't really do what I wanted. But it worked out great either way for this. I like it. It does work for me, so quite happy. But right now I can say I'm happy with it. Right now I can definitely tell you, yes, it's worth the $50. Although, like I said, they should have included the power supply, especially considering you actually need to have the power supply. It's a mandatory must. It's beyond me. But anyways, the weird parts, yes, when you're using Type A adapters with Type C devices, you have to go Type A or Type C off of here to the Type A adapter that comes with it to get your NVMEs to mount, period. I did try putting the cable direct to Thunderbolt. My NVMe was recognized in the system profiler, but would not mount on the desktop. No matter which way the cable, didn't matter. And I even tried flipping the main cable at the other end. That didn't make a difference either. But everything else worked, including my card reader. So it's kind of like, that's kind of strange. I don't really freaking know what's going on. But whatever. It's an interesting thing. But these, believe it or not, are data and voltage polarized to work properly, and that means you have to have them in the right direction in an A adapter. If you're going direct Type C to direct Type C or Thunderbolt port, which is still a Type C port plug, it doesn't matter which way the cable is in because you're going direct. But when you're using the adapters, you have to have that in a certain direction or the drive's not going to work. You'll find out. Run a speed test on the drive and it's really sucky and barky and you hear noise out of your speakers. Just unplug it and flip it around and you'll be fine. And that's how I figured it out. But you can't flip the Type A. You have to flip the C into the A adapter. It's the only way it works. But anyway, so otherwise I'm pretty impressed with it. I think it's a pretty good hub. It is pretty fast. I knew I would get the slower speed yet with the NVMe because it's going into a Type A, which is a slower bus than a Type C. So I did expect a drop. But still, even with the drop I have, that drive is strictly only for backing up my YouTube videos that I upload. This way, if the YouTube server ever crashed, I have everything backed up. And this way I could reload my entire channel if I had to. If they couldn't recover them all, I could recover everything, no problem, back up to the YouTube server and I'd be fine. Because I do have that backup. So that's the only reason I have the drive, and I don't care if it's 300 and change megabits per second. It's more than fast enough to shoot them across and they're good. So but for more serious horsepower and speed, yeah, we go Thunderbolt drives, other Type C drives for more speed. You get the idea, right? But I'm going to leave it there for now. Let you guys ponder on it, think about it. If it's something you're interested in, I will have the link down below in the description box. You can go and buy one if you choose. But I would probably wait at least a week, let me torture it, before I give you my final verdict on it. Okay? Because it is going to lose a little bit of point average, but how things are affected over a week of solid everyday use, that's what we want to find out, if it's going to survive my torture. And if it does, then I will give it a green light at that time. But right now I'm saying, so far, it looks pretty good. It's pretty impressive. And we'll just continue on. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, especially about that weird hookup stuff. That's really got me. But anyway, see you in the next one.